Hey guys, welcome back to Mishmas. So I just got home from my vacation in Hawaii. It was amazing, but we took a red eye home, so I feel slightly delirious, and I wanted to do something to keep me awake, so here we are, we're filming. But I came home to a package from Charlotte Tilbury. So while I was on vacation, I ordered the new Stoned Rose Beauty Instant Look in a Palette. So many of you were asking me on Instagram, how similar is it to her previous one, her previous two Instant Look in a Palettes. So we'll be talking about all of that. We'll be doing some comparisons. I'll be doing a demo of it. As you can tell, I don't have much makeup on at the moment. So we'll get into all of that. But let me go ahead and show you the packaging, give you the details on the palette. So I ordered this palette off of the Charlotte Tilbury site, $75, and it is limited edition. And this is the box that it came in. So this is the Stoned Rose Beauty palette, and this palette was inspired by the Stoned Rose lipstick that she has in her line, which I'll show you also as well. I have that in my collection. I love the imagery on this box, but I don't know about you guys, does it? It's sort of starting to remind me of Pat McGrath. I mean, the style of the artwork is very different, but like the mirroring of it and the fact that it's rose, it reminds me of the Divine Rose palette. Anyway, that is the outer packaging of the Stoned Rose Beauty palette. And then here is a close look at the palette. So it comes with like the typical kind of Charlotte Tilbury packaging instead of her holiday one, which had the starburst on the cover. So this is the gorgeous glowing beauty palette. And again, we'll do some comparisons to that one. But this one has just kind of a plain cover. And then inside we have the 7 products. So we have 3 eye products across the top. Then we have a bronzer, 2 cheek products, and then a highlight. So let me go ahead and show you some swatches of this palette. So I have the first 3 eyeshadows from left to right. And then we have the bronze, the cheek swish color, then the cheek pop color, and then the highlight at the end. So far what I can tell from just sort of feeling and finger swatching these shadows and these other face products, they feel very, very similar to at least the last 2 palettes. The first 3 palettes that she came out with, I want to say the formula of those were a little hit and miss. I didn't get along with all the eyeshadows. Some of the face products felt a little bit harder pressed, but I feel like with this one and the 2 previous, they definitely feel a little bit silky. They feel a little bit more consistent. So we'll see when I actually get them onto my face. You know what? Let's do the comparison swatches because I think you guys are probably most interested in that, and then we'll leave the demo for the end. I hope you guys don't mind my bare face while we talk about this. But why don't we go ahead and actually compare it to the 4th Instant Look in a Palette, which is the Beauty Glow palette. So that is this guy right here. And let me just hold them up next to one another just so you can get kind of like an overview of their similarities and their differences. Oh God, how can I do this? All right, so here's the Stoned Rose and here is the Beauty Glow. So here are some comparison swatches. So what I've done is I have swatched the new Stoned Rose across the top, and then right underneath it, I swatched the Beauty Glow. So we could compare, you know, like apples to apples. So the only things I actually found similar in these 2 palettes is the first 2 eye colors, the like light shimmer and then the medium tone shimmer. I think they're very, very similar. And then I think the highlight is very similar, if not the same. As for the other products, I think that they are definitely different enough. I love the cheek swish color in the Beauty Glow palette. This was probably my favorite blush for a very, very long time. But you can see how deep and like terracotta it is. And there's nothing even close in the new Stoned Rose palette. And then the bronzer tone, it's a little bit different. The one in the Beauty Glow is a little bit more neutral. The one in the Stoned Rose is a little bit more warm. All right, next up, let's go ahead and compare it to the holiday palette. This is the most recent one, and I think this is the one that you guys were most curious about. So here they are next to one another. Sorry, my hands are in the way. Oh, okay. This one is the Stoned Rose, and this one is the gorgeous glowing Beauty palette. And here I did the same thing with the swatches. So the Stoned Rose swatches are on the top and the gorgeous glowing beauty swatches are right underneath it. So here you'll see that I find the eye shades to be quite different, actually. The first two are a little bit deeper, a little bit actually more cool toned in the holiday one, in the gorgeous glowing one. And then the smoke one I find to be a little bit more red based and deeper in the holiday one versus the stoned rose. But the cheek products are fairly different. And then the highlight is very similar as well. So between the new one and the two previous ones, there are slight differences for sure. But I think the overall effect that you're gonna get from all three of these palettes are gonna be very, very similar for sure. I mean, if you were to break it down like I just did, you know, eyeshadow to eyeshadow, cheek product to cheek product, yeah, they're different. But I just think you're gonna end up with like the same look on your face out of all three of these palettes. Another question that I got is, you know, do I think this is fair skin friendly? This is definitely fair skin friendly. And I think this is even more toned down than the holiday palette. You can see that the holiday palette, the eyeshadows are a bit more dramatic at the top here. The two deeper shadows here are in fact pretty deep. So I think maybe overall what I could say is this one is maybe a little bit less dramatic than the holiday one. But again, I think you're gonna end up with a very similar look. Just for some quick comparisons, I'm not even gonna bother holding it up to the Smoky Eye Beauty. This is definitely like the outlier in all of these palettes. This one is very, very different. So I'm just gonna put that one away. And then to compare it to the second one, which is Seductive Beauty, I'm gonna hold them up this way. They're a little bit easier to hold this way. So this one is the Stoned Rose one. So you can see this one, it's a little bit more neutral. It has like less red undertones, especially in the eyeshadows. And then the very first instant look in a palette, the Natural Beauty, is much more subdued all around. So this one is the Natural Beauty, and then this one is the Stoned Rose. But anyway, why don't I go ahead and jump into the demo of this, and we'll put all of these products on my face. All right, so I'm gonna start with the face products. I'm gonna start with the bronzer and apply that. I am looking for a brush. I kind of cleaned up my vanity before I left, and now of course I can't find anything. All right, I've got my newly cleaned Sonia G Face Pro brush. I'm gonna dip this into the bronze, and this bronze is definitely on the warmer side. So this will definitely work nicely as a bronze if you're into a warmer bronze, maybe a little bit too warm for contour. So I'm just gonna start to add this to my forehead. We'll see what it looks like underneath my cheekbones here. I really like this bronze because it has like a copper kind of tone. I feel like it could work as like a blush as well if maybe you wanted to kill two birds with one stone. I think this could work double duty as like blush and bronze if you just want to kind of brush it all over your cheek area. This bronze is very, very similar to the Holiday Palette's bronze, but there's something, it's like a little bit peachier in its warmth versus orange. I feel like there's like a teensy bit more red in this bronze than the other one. I don't know if you guys can see that or if you guys even remember it. Yeah, here's the holiday one, and then this is the Stoned Rose one. They're just slightly different undertone, and then this Stoned Rose one, gosh, I hope you guys can see it. It has just a little bit more sheen. Maybe that's what I'm seeing. It just looks less muddy and a little bit more, I don't know, glowy, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna take my Refer 05 brush and go into the number 5 cheek swish color. These pans are a little bit small for cheek products, but you know, if I kind of keep turning my brush around, it's okay. So I'm just going to brush that lightly across my cheekbone. Okay, and I'm just gonna use a little bit of the pop here, dot that onto the apples of my cheeks there. And I have a powder brush sitting here. I'm just gonna buff that out a little bit. It looks a little loud. It looks a little loud even for me. Very pretty, very, very Charlotte Tilbury. It has like that little bit of sheen. Very pretty, very feminine kind of pink blush color. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's move over to the highlight. And this highlight looks very, very standard. And in fact, it looks very similar to the highlight that is in the Film Star Bronze and Glow. Let's actually take a look at that one. I have it here. So mine's pretty beat up, but I'm gonna go ahead and do some swatches of that. Yeah, these look pretty identical, don't they? And I don't know if you can even see them, but this one is the Film Star Bronze and Glow, and then this one is from the palette. Yeah, they pretty much look the same. Okay, well that's good because I really like the one in the Film Star Bronze and Glow. But let's see if it looks the same on the cheek. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say that's pretty much the same highlight. And I think in the Holiday, it is the same highlight as well. Yeah, so I don't really mind. I mean, this highlight works for my skin tone. If it's one of those products that doesn't work for you, it's going to be very frustrating to see it again. But yeah, this is pretty much the same highlight that's in the Film Star Bronze and Glow. Oh, I just love this highlight. It's so, what's the word? It's just so satiny, buttery. That doesn't sound good. All right, and now for the eyeshadows. So the eyeshadows for me are what has always been fairly inconsistent across these palettes. And it's usually the dark color that kind of doesn't end up working. It doesn't, I don't know, ends up being patchy. Anyway, let's go ahead and try these. I'm gonna start with my Refer 15 brush. I'm gonna go into the first shade and just apply that to the inner corner here. I almost feel like this first shade is just a hint more gold than the highlight, but you could probably just use this highlight as a shade. It's almost like this is wasted. In fact, I'm going to use the highlight on my other eye and let's see how similar it is. So the eyeshadow side, yeah, it's a little bit more golden, but you know, you get a very similar effect. So I don't know. I don't know if you need that in there. I'm going to go ahead and apply the eyeshadow over the highlight here so we have the same tone of gold there. I'm going to take the same brush and go into number 2, Enhance. And apply this basically to the rest of my lid and then overlapping it over the center of my lid there. That color's pretty, but that definitely took a little building. So I don't know if this is terribly pigmented, but it is pretty once, you know, I kind of got the level of pigmentation that I like. Definitely blends into that first color really nicely. All right, and finally, I'm gonna take my Sonia G Builder Pro brush. This is like a flat shader, and I'm gonna go into that smoky eye shade and add a little bit of dimension here. And then I'm gonna use the tips of this brush and just drag it along my lower lash line a little bit here. All right, there is the eyeshadow applied. I didn't find any problems with the quality. I found all 3 of the shadows to apply nicely, to blend nicely. That second shadow I had to build up a little bit, but once I added like, you know, another layer and kind of like kept building up that color, I thought it was really pretty. You could really see like the warmth of it kind of come through and it blended with the first color really nicely. So I am happy with the shadows. It is just a very, very soft, natural look. So again, I think I mentioned this before, but if you do have the Holiday palette, it's going to be a much softer look than this one. This one was a much more, I don't know, evening, smokier kind of eyeshadow look from these 3 versus this Stoned Rose. This one is definitely closer to that Beauty Glow one. Yeah, this Beauty Glow one. So I think these shadows, much like, I experienced this a lot with Charlotte Tilbury shadows, like her Pillow Talk quad. They end up looking a lot peachier on my eyelids than I anticipate. Like when I look at these shadows in the pan here, I feel like this one looks very brown, almost has like a red undertone, but I feel like on my lids, it almost looks like a deep peach color. I hope you guys are seeing what I'm talking about, but this happens a lot with the Charlotte Tilbury colors. I don't know if it's because I can't really see the undertones in the pan, you know, when I'm just looking at the shadow, or if it's something in the formula that kind of, I don't know, oxidizes on my lids. I'm not exactly sure what is going on or what happens when I use her shadows, but this does seem to happen with like her more recent shadows. I feel like all of her earlier quads that I have that are cooler or more neutral toned, those don't turn, those kind of stay true to color. So maybe it's just the undertone of these more recent shadows that she's done that is kind of just, I don't know, peeking out or becomes more pronounced when you actually apply them on lid, because I know I'm not the only one. I think when I mentioned it with the Pillow Talk quad, many of you said the same thing, that yeah, it didn't seem quite as pink as it looked in the pan. They looked a lot more peach and warm on the lids. So anyway, same thing is kind of going on here, so I thought I would mention that. But let's keep going. I'm gonna apply like the rest of my eye makeup, eyebrows, mascara, etc. And then we'll go ahead and apply the Stoned Rose lip color on and see how nice of a match it is to this face palette. All right, so I've got my Stoned Rose here. This is what the color looks like. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I actually haven't used this in a very long time. I used to wear this all the time, and I thought the color was a little bit more neutral, but this actually looks very warm to me. I guess I just didn't remember it very correctly. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Charlotte Tilbury Iconic Nude Lip Cheat to line my lips. And now I'm gonna apply the lipstick. So here is my final look. I really, really like it. I like it with this Stoned Rose lipstick a lot more than I thought. This lipstick is a lot warmer than I remember in my mind's eye. I thought it was a lot cooler, but I do think this is kind of, I don't know, like the daytime version of the holiday one. The eyeshadows are just, you know, they're less smoky. They're a little bit lighter, but I do think if you also have the Beauty Glow palette, I just think you're gonna end up with a very similar look, especially if you have these two, or even if you just have one of these, it's gonna be a fairly similar look to this new one. But there are some nuances, and I hope I was able to illustrate all of that for you. But let me know if you have any questions down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.